We'll begin tonight's meeting of the Weathersfield Planning and Zoning Commission. First order of business is roll call by our clerk, Mr. Homicki.
Chairman Hammer.
Here.
Mr. Lambruni.
Here.
I'm here. Mr. Brecklin.
Here.
Mr. Dean. Mr. Drake.
Here.
Mr. Edwards.
Yep.
Now Lori.
She had a conflict this week.
Rich Roberts.
Here.
Crystal Coca-Cola is the new member, not here.
She has a conflict as well.
Mr. Orcolini.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Tom came in today to pick up a packet. I expect him to be here any day.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we have 9 of us right now. No old business. New business is a pre-application regarding a proposed agritourism use submitted by 7 Acres Farm, property located at 100 Great Plain Lane. If you'd like to come up to the podium and give us your name and address. And before you do that, I'll just note that in a pre-application, it's an opportunity for the applicant to present a concept to the commission in terms of what you may be thinking about in terms of a use, a proposed building, whatever the case may be, and an opportunity for us to give you feedback, which is not binding or an actual decision, but hopefully can give you at least some feedback that may enable you to decide how you want to proceed. So with that said, if you'd like to come up and state your name and address and tell us what it is that you'd like to talk about.
My name is Morgan Dodge. I'm the owner of 7 Acres Farm. We live at 1094 Nipsic Road in Glastonbury. The farm is at 100 Great Plain Lane in Weathersfield, down at the dead end of Elm Street there. We are primarily a pick-your-own flower farm. We've been doing this for about 3 years now with the pick-your-own mentality. It's been going very well, to the point where we just, I guess, didn't realize that people wanted to cut their own flowers. And it's opened up other things such as live music, trying to keep people on the farm after they cut the flowers. So I'm here to discuss, we're leasing the Descenza Farm property where we currently are at. It's 22 acres. It used to be cornfields. We are a spray-free farm. We don't spray any pesticides, chemicals, anything like that. So we're trying to bring something new, something different, and the concept is get our customers there with the idea of cutting your own flowers and then how to keep them there. So everything that we are currently doing is grown on-site, sold on-site. We do have our primary other location in Glastonbury. It's really just our house. We grow flowers, we put them at the end of our driveway. This location is where the public is allowed to be at. So with the growth that we've had, we're trying to offer things such as live music, food trucks, vendor fairs where we host, other small businesses selling unique things. And that's really the main thing that we're going for right now. Last year, we planned to be open Wednesday and then Saturday and Sunday. We sold out in Saturday, and we were not able to be open more than 1 day a week. We had so many people coming. So this year we're adding 12 more acres to our agricultural fields, realizing that we couldn't keep enough flowers growing to sell enough. So hopefully that'll help. We feel like, it's a good draw for the community. My wife and I both grew up in town here, and we just were looking for property, so we moved over to Glastonbury, but it feels good to bring something back agriculturally to the town. And, I'm trying to do the right thing, apply for the permits. We've had a lot of people interested, and I'm just excited to bring something new to the town. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm just worried about the live music and the food trucks right now.
A couple of quick questions for you. I think part of what we need to consider as a commission is whether what you're proposing fits within one of our use categories in our regulations. But a couple of questions along those lines. One is, what, if any, structures would you be proposing to construct?
So currently there are structures on the property. They're not mine. We last year just used pop-up tents. We have had people inquire about weddings and things like that. It's not on our radar right now. A tent, I know we're in the floodplain. So I think if anything, the structures that we would be adding to the current site would be like an open air pavilion, anchored down, no walls, anything like that. It would just, so we have people check in, and then they basically walk through the flower field. We have no other structures currently. We have no shade structures, nothing. We offer lawn chairs and picnic tables, and we promote people to bring their own chairs. So if we were to add a structure, it would never be, as much as it would be nice to with a concrete floor, we would not be doing that. I was over there today, and there's tons of water.
And in terms of tents, would those come down at the end of the season?
Yep.
And about how many of your overall acres would people who come have access to actually walk around?
So in terms of my lease, we have a 3-acre plot and then a 12-acre plot, which we are adding this year. So we have 15 acres that is encompassing my lease. The total property, from my understanding, is 22 acres, but that's where the family steps in. They have their own barn and shelters that are already there. As far as I'm aware, Comstock Ferry used to be down there. That used to be their seed processing plant and everything. So those structures are still in place. In terms of what I'm asking for, we have 15 acres of tillable land. On that, I'm looking to add in a point of sale check-in station, which in the 2025 season was just 3 tents from Costco that we broke down, packed away at the end of the season. They never remained during any season that we're not there. So,
and of the 15 acres that you would have, if I were to come to your place, are people going to be focused just on a 1-acre site, or are they going to be walking around the whole?
No, yeah. So
15?
the new 12-acre addition allows us to add more parking. It's a gated property, so you can't enter the property without, there's a locked gate. So you pull through, as I showed in the map, the first part of the property is all going to be parking. We have a lot of families, young kids come, so, traffic is super important to us in terms of just mitigating people running someone over, So it's a large property. If we even have an event, we care very deeply about how the traffic for those vendors are being driven in, being driven out. So yes, basically everyone is allowed to roam the entire site. We don't have any chemicals to be stored. The biggest worry for us is parking, because not everyone pays attention, So our one way in, one way out train of thought for parking is hopefully mitigating that, anyone getting hurt.
What did you have in mind? You mentioned food trucks and music. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so our plan for the 2026 season is Saturday and Sundays to be open. We don't have any lights on site, so we close at sunset. We use the word sunset because that's a seasonal change. So we are open this year from end of July to first frost in October. So obviously the term sunset changes throughout those seasons. We don't plan on adding parking lot lights. We have a family ourselves. We want to go home. So we're going to be open from those times, and food trucks would be on the weekends during those times. Live music would be in the allowable noise ordinance of the town, and it seems like, I believe that was 10 o'clock, so, we close at 8 o'clock. So, I feel like we're within that time constraint of it's daylight out, we would have music, and then we would be closed.
Questions? Peter?
You mentioned the 2025 operations. Where was that, in Glastonbury?
So 2025 was at the Descenza property at 100 Great Plain Lane. 2024 was our first year doing U-Pick, and that was at Rose's Berry Farm in Glastonbury.
So you've done this already in 2025?
Yes,
What you're describing?
we've sold flowers in 2025.
Have you had cars come into the property?
Yes,
Why are we here?
Yeah, so,
because it,
So-
Why are we doing this?
so the consideration is that, and I applaud Mr. Dodge for coming in. So I was at the Tourism and Cultural Commission meeting this year, and they were talking about how great this operation is. And I know that the intent is that it would like to grow. Currently, the operation has been permitted as a farm stand, which is permitted. It's they're selling U-Pick flowers. They're grown on site. It's very matter of fact. However, I know last year I met Morgan, and he was thinking, well, I'd like to maybe expand it and do some more things, including having local vendors be able to sell things as well. So, and this commission I'm sure knows more than I do on the history of this, but my understanding is the distinction of a farm stand is that it needs to be selling products that are grown on site. And the practice has been, if you are selling a limited amount of other retail goods that are not grown on site, but it's de minimis compared to what is being sold in that's produced on site, it's been okay. However, I do know that the idea is to have more of an event center on the weekends, including live music, photography, and so knowing that and then hearing that it is sort of growing in popularity and recognition, I suggested that, and Mr. Dodge, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but he's sort of looking ahead for the future. So he said, I'd like to be prepared. What can I do in order to grow this operation? It's all going to be agritourism, which is a new term. And I said, well, the right thing to do, what we don't want to have happen is that this becomes someone says, hey, there's a commercial operation going on at this location. Are you aware of it? And that, in anyone's view, it seems to exceed the definition of a farm stand. So I suggested, why don't you come before the commission and propose what it is you'd like to do. And originally I was thinking perhaps it might need a zoning regulation text change to allow it. And so simply put, that was one of the considerations, was if this is currently not allowed, this agritourism use on the property as a temporary seasonal use, could the applicant propose a regulation? And if so, then the application, if approved, could come back in. However, in the interim, once I saw the application and what they want to do, I put before you tonight just a section of what is currently allowed in the agricultural zone, and perhaps a zoning regulation text change isn't necessary, and that what is being proposed could be permitted already as a conditional use special permit, which in my opinion seems like a reasonable approach. It would allow the commission to have regulations sort of, to address the hours of operation, the duration of the different events, the seasonality of the events, the potential music, as well as the opportunity to revisit it, right? If it becomes a problem for any reason, whether it's, and I did talk to Morgan, we talked about emergency access, I talked about bathroom facilities, so these are things they've already thought about, and through a special permit, it would be a possible way to regulate those and try it, sort of as a, see how it goes.
Okay, that clears it up. He also mentioned, kind of in passing, and maybe he wants to at some point have weddings or potentially think of weddings. Now, that would be outside of what's in front of us, correct?
Yeah, I think in a permit, I would,
running a wedding there, would be much more intense than this right here that he's proposing, I would imagine.
I would agree, and I would ask questions too. If the commission decides that this is something that they could consider as a special permit that's already allowed, those would be the questions I would ask, and to be defined in a statement of use.
Agree.
Correct.
Category 9, which includes picnic areas, fairgrounds,
Right.
and nature centers. That would be a special permit category if we
Yeah,
thought
and-
that it fit.
And I highlighted a couple of sections where I think, if you read the statement or the potential use, they talk about having camps and sort of some workshops, right? So I saw workshops as being similar to a day camp, right? So one of the things that's allowed in this zone is a day camp. So having a workshop to teach about agricultural and educational events would be considered, in my mind, similar to a day camp. The fairgrounds aspect and a picnic area with open pavilions seems similar to what's already allowed by special permit. That's number 9, as you said. Number 6 allows for accessory uses customarily incidental to a permitted use. And so I saw a number of things that were currently allowed in the zone by special permit or permitted by right that seemed to be close enough to be considered allowed already. And I think I did see, was it a festival, a fairground, right? And so the fairground is where, when I start to hear live music, right? So that's the one thing that I could see being objectionable. Music, noise travels across flat areas from the river valley, so, noise would be one of those things. There's no lights. They talk about there's currently no lights proposed, so. Yeah.
How about toilets?
Well, I had asked, they need to have a plan for, portalets, I assume, but.
Yeah, we have last year, so our first year at Rose's Berry Farm in 2024, we did, just because of budgetary needs, we just did a regular porta potty. We realized that after that year, we learned a lesson and we attract a lot of families. And I noticed, because I'm always on farm, I'm always the person checking people in. So the face that they see is me every time I'm open. And we have 3 young boys, and I saw the parents, and I'm like, you can't get in the single stall bathroom with your young child. So we now just bite the bullet, and we buy handicap accessible porta potties. So a wheelchair, anybody can go in, you can bring your children in, do whatever you need to do. And we've been adding more and more just because we sell out. So we have a lot of people, we have a lot of foot traffic coming through. The ultimate goal is, I'm an electrician by trade, I'm fairly handy. We're just gonna make a luxury porta potty trailer that would be, handicap accessible, and they would just come pump it. I don't wanna keep renting little blue boxes that I have to pay for. So we always provide bathrooms, hand washing stations, and we keep adding more of those stations due to the influx of traffic that we have, and they're pumped regularly, once a week.
It would be secure when you're not there.
Yeah, so we have a locked gate. That's a nice thing about this site, is that they, prior to me, installed a very big lock gate. So it is locked whenever anybody else is not there.
Where is this relative to, like, you go down Elm Street to the end and then there's the really big locked gate that goes under 91. This is, if you keep going straight on the right.
It's like shaped like a hockey stick. So you go down Elm, you hit the Meadows gate,
Yeah.
which is, it's confusing because it's yellow, and then there's a gravel road.
Right.
And that gravel road, the only 2 businesses on that gravel road are the turf farm and us. We're at the very dead end.
Okay.
So there's another big yellow gate. That's the other thing I've been working on is getting that road paved, because, we have, I'm not gonna lie, we have a lot of people. I mean, last year we had close to 2,000 people a day coming to our farm.
Yeah, actually, that was, my next question was, what are we talking about, order of magnitude of traffic and parking?
Yeah, so last year, was our first year in Weathersfield. I built the site myself. It was 3 acres of the 22 acres. And we had close to 2,000 people on a Saturday. And that's not all at once. It's just this ebb and flow of coming in, coming out, No one ever parked on the road. They were always parked on site. We never needed any auxiliary parking. We always had ample bathrooms. And we were pretty shocked by that number. I did not anticipate that, being our first year on our new site, and the only other experience with our UPIC was the year prior. So we are building a website. We've never had a website before. So it's advertising. It was just Facebook and social media. So that opened our eyes, and that's why I'm really here, because I want to know that our traffic flow is not hindered by me not doing my due diligence on asking the town what I can and cannot do. We have a lot of people interested in our farm, and we are trying to do our best in terms of the key issues, no parking on the road, bathrooms, dangers, anything like that. So we're really trying to do our best around signage and anything like that.
Do you have any complaints from the town or the neighbors or anybody?
So we had one complaint, and I spoke with the neighbor on the road. Speed. There's no speed limit signs on the road posted. There's no street sign posted to even mark the road that we are actually on, which I've come to the town during this process to say, hey, no one even knows where Great Plain Lane is because there's no road sign. There's no speed signs. So I spoke with the neighbor and I said, hey, I'm telling all my customers to slow down. We're trying to do our best from our site, but once they get onto a town of Weathersfield Road and there are no posted speed limit signs, I'm not a cop. I can only do what I can do. The other issue was that the turf farm, their grandson was telling people that they're not allowed to my business. So I had to go to the police department and make a complaint because their grandson was on a dirt bike telling people to not come down the road because it's not a paved road, but it's a town road. So I'm trying to deal with those issues now because we have so many people coming down the road and it's a dead end road, by most people's standards. I grew up in Weathersfield. If you're going down that road, you're going into the meadows or there's no reason to go down that road. So I'm trying to accept that I'm bringing something different to the town. And, I suggested either a speed bump, tabletop, slow people down, speed bumps, signs. The fact that none of that is there right now, I'm just trying to do my best to suggest it, but I don't put those things in.
Yeah, the spring floods might ding up the road enough that it'll slow people down.
Yeah.
You're only selling cut flowers, not potted plants?
No, we give people a mason jar, 2 different sizes. We provide them with a pair of shears. They walk through our field and whatever jar size they have, they can fill that jar. And that's why I'm an electrician by trade. So to have 2,000 people come through on a Saturday filling a jar, I'm pretty happy that it's happening. But like I said, that's all we sell. We have bees, so we do honey. Other than that, basically what's up until this point has just been flowers and the honey that we produce on our own farm.
Can they bring alcohol?
We are BYOB.
Or BYO?
Yeah. So in terms that we've had people present themselves with, the bar car kind of atmosphere, but because we're BYOB, I've told them if we were to apply for that or however that would work, we'd have to probably apply for a permit, but it'd be a ticketed day. Because we're BYOB, I'd say, this is a ticketed event that you can't come in unless you bought a ticket, and I know you're 21 and over, and therefore you can have access to the bar car. But up until this point, we are BYOB.
So is this where the Christmas tree farm used to be?
Correct.
That's exactly where you're doing this, right?
Yes.
All right. So it's clear.
The highway's right there.
Yeah.
So in terms of even the music, it would be projecting towards the highway. All the houses are behind us, so the sound, you can almost not hear.
I think 91 would be louder than your
It's
music.
much louder, to be totally honest with you, yeah.
Have something? Sorry, Tom?
Yes, my apologies to the commission for my late arrival, but I do have some questions for the applicant and also for our town planner as well. One of the issues that does seem to be missing from the application, either in terms of commentary or the written presentation, is the issue of signage. That appears to be an issue that I would think could be worked through among the applicant, the town planner, and the police department, with regards particularly to notice signage of the operation of the business. I would presume that there would be temporary signs, and the other kinds of signage is the one that the applicant had mentioned that he's not able to provide. He's been trying to advocate for that, and that's the street signage. Now, I don't know if there's possibility of having temporary street signage for the days in which the applicant would be in operation, and what the rights or the authority that the applicant might have to put up any kind of street or traffic signs, since this does, from the applicant's testimony, appears to be a town-owned street. I have a couple of questions for the applicant himself, beyond my querying about signage. And that is, number one, with respect to the parking, on an average day that you're in operation, on an average time, say, if I would do a spot check during any time of the day, about how many vehicles would be parked on site?
That's a very good question. So this year, we're making a bigger parking area, but on average last year, we had 2 parking areas, and I would estimate between 100 to 150 cars.
So at any one time, you're looking at, at least based on last year's data that you have,
Yeah,
it's a maximum of 150 cars on site.
yeah. And they stay, they flow out, new cars flow in, kind of thing. Yeah.
Also, you indicated that you do have a first aid station that's planned for the site.
Yep.
Would that be manned by a person that is, Red Cross certified for, emergency kinds of care?
I mean, I'm first aid CPR. I'm an
Okay.
electrician, so I had to go through all those classes. My wife is in the medical field. But legally wise, we can't administer any of that stuff, because that's insurance wise, we're just setting ourselves up for failure. So the things that we administer, bee stings. We have sting stuff, dogs, if a dog gets stung, if a child gets stung, because we are pet friendly. So the things that we have for first aid are in terms of what our insurance company has said, don't go past this point. If you do, just call the ambulance. So we have a large liability policy, and we don't want to get in trouble for being nice and helping too much in today's world. So we have basic, Benadryl, Band-Aids, anything that were to happen. And thankfully, in the 3 years, we've never had to use any of that. But I don't want to have someone overly qualified to administer something that we shouldn't be administering.
You tended to stress in your presentation bee stings, for example, or at least that was the emphasis. Is there a beekeeping operation in proximity to your?
Not currently. This year we will be bringing our hives from our Nipsic Road location in Glastonbury. We have someone who manages the hives for us, so we will be placing them on the site, but there are flowers and there are bees.
Okay, so you will have actually beehives on site,
In 2026,
which sounds
Yeah.
reasonable in a
Yeah.
flower field.
we have a lot of people interested in our honey because we don't mix it with anything. Any of the honey we sell is solely derived from that property. A lot of honey producers have multiple locations, and they mix their honey. So we've had a lot of local people very interested in the honey grown on our property because it is solely from the 100 Great Plain Lane property.
In the farming aspects of your operation, have you encountered any, patches of hornet nests in that area?
Not up until this point. No.
Because that would be if I'm looking for
Yeah.
a stinging insect, that's the one I'd be very fearful of.
Yeah. No. I will say we are creating something that is different than what that farm agricultural land has seen before. We don't spray chemicals. The landowner is a certified beekeeper, and he has not been able to keep bees due to all the pesticides being sprayed due to the previous farmer and all the other farmers on the road. So we are making this little bubble, and in my opinion, that's good. We don't spray Roundup, we don't spray anything. If I have to kill weeds, I use vinegar or I tarp them. So we do not spray any chemicals. So therefore, those animals are coming back in full force. I mean, we saw a black bear there last year. In my opinion, these signs are good because we're making the environment back to what it should be.
I am truly empathetic about the problems that beekeepers had. I had a good friend who maintained a number of beehives, and it can be a tough operation.
It's a doozy, yeah.
But I've been around his bees enough that I've never been fearful about getting stung or anything of that sort. So I think it's not that big of a danger. Since bees are a critical natural resource for this continent, and there have been massive die-offs, I tend to think operations that encourage those kinds of helpful insects that are vital to our agricultural industry should be, would be encouraged.
Yeah, a lot of people have been very, like I said, this whole journey that we've been on, it's been very amazing. I mean, people have left us amazing comments. Things been said, oh, your honey's amazing, we're happy you're here. So those type of things around, whether it's bees, whether it's we don't spray any chemicals so the kids can roll around in the grass. I mean, it means a lot to us. The other note I might say in terms of the signage, we have a sign on the chain link fence that the gate is attached to that just says 7 Acres Farm. I actually have been discussing with David's department about funding for farm directional signage due to the nature of we're at the dead end of a road that when you come off Route 3, you can't turn that way. So the only way you can get to our farm is if you're going towards Glastonbury over the bridge, or if you're coming from Broad Street Green over. So the way that in Glastonbury where I live, a lot of the farms just have a little placard that says the farm name and it's bolted to a sign, and that it just might have an arrow. So I've been working with David's department, and I'm hopeful to find some of those locations in town where we can put those up, just to deal with people, coming, depending on which way you're coming off the highway. I've been trying to do my personal due diligence on the signs and the regulations, which there are a number of obvious regulations and signs. So the problem is that we're at the dead end, and where most of the traffic is on the Route 3 side there, going over the bridge. So according to the rules right now, I can't put a sign out there because it's not in front of my property, which is at the dead end. So I didn't mention it because I haven't come up with a means to come up, to design a way that maybe you gentlemen would be able to approve a seasonal stand or sign that I can take in and out. There's just been a lot of rules that I'm trying to address right now, and that's kind of why I left the signage out.
One final question back to the first aid station.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have would you have in place at your station, one of those devices, for for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it.
Shock-
but
shock-
one of the-
yeah.
That provides a shock if someone's having a,
My wife has suggested getting one of those, because that actually is not, so we want to get a defibrillator, I believe, if
Right,
I'm not
a
mistaken.
defibrillator.
That and they now have them where it's like a choker, you can put over the mouth, you know? So we probably will get those, and those are not going to hinder us in terms of insurance liability. You can, as a, patron, use a defibrillator. So we would like to get those, and if that made a difference, we'd be happy to accommodate that.
What's the surface under the parking area?
So our whole farm is grass, basically. The drive-in, which is existing, is millings, old asphalt. So last year was a learning lesson for me. We are in a floodplain, things get wet, and as you get a lot of traffic, the grass just moves like a mud pie. So our big parking area that we are adding this year, I've come into a plan where it's the travel lane that is getting the most wear and tear. And the landowner does not want me to bring in any stone. I can bring in wood chips, but you're adding wood chips into a valuable tillable field, which is not good. So my plan is just to flip-flop the drive area. So you're driving down the roads one day, and then the next day we're open, it's over here. So that's just mitigating the pressure put on during a given time.
Is that just using cones or ropes or something?
Yeah, like flagging tape sticks, and then the way my plan is to buy chalk, like a chalk liner this year, like you would have at a ballpark. People just don't understand. If there's no parking lines, they don't understand how to park. So last year I had 5 people parking. Like they would tell you to go down, the person would tell you to go in, they'd tell you to go out. It's an expense. I'd ideally like to get away from having 5 people parking. So my thought is you pull in one way, they're all angled spots, you back out, you pull down the same way. There's never a reverse, there's never 2 lanes of traffic going the same way. I mow the lawn once a week, I re-chalk the lines.
That's a unusual traffic light on Route 3 and Elm, because if you're coming from Glastonbury, it's posted no left turn, I believe.
You can't turn there, yeah.
So you've got to really go all the way up to the Silestine Highway and turn around and come back and take a right in?
Yes, so, or like go down, go around the Broad Street Green, come across Elm.
Because you can go straight across Elm over Route 3, but you can't go
Yeah.
left onto the Putnam Bridge
Right,
either.
so that's where I've been working with the signs, just
Right.
trying to, where would I place signs to say 7 Acres Farm, because I wasn't out there seeing how the traffic flowed last year.
Yeah.
They all arrived. There was complaints, because I can't become Google verified if I don't have a street sign, and there's no street sign. So I can't, according to Google, I'm still open because they won't allow me to say I'm closed because there's no street sign allowing me to tell them where my actual location is.
Yes, Chris?
Yeah, so because you said 2,000-ish over the course of the season last year?
A day.
A day, sorry,
Day.
okay. And then did you happen to figure out where folks were coming from?
So we've had people, repeat customers, travel from an hour away. All over the state. Fairfield, everywhere. The only other competitor doing similar actions as we, as a U-Pick, large U-Pick field, is Willow View Farm, and she's in, she's over an hour away. So because we're in the Hartford area, because we're in a historical town, it's centrally located, and they were coming from all over the state.
Great draw.
So we one of those things where, like, last year, I'm like, people are saying, oh, look at that license plate, oh, it's Rhode Island, it's this and that. And I'm like, all right, maybe we should get a map to, start pinning these people. But brings a smile to my face when people are like, oh, we came all the way out of our way. So, yeah.
That's great. And so you mentioned having vendors and things like that. So, like approximately sort of like one, I guess, you gave us some sort of preliminary maps and sort of layout. relative to the building and everything, where would, because you know, it is a dead end there, so where would the vendors be getting
So
set up?
basically, you'd be pulling in sight, there's a gate, and I was there today measuring, so the first 200 feet of the property is this odd-shaped triangle. That would be the new parking. Customers would park there. With the next 100 foot the fields are 400 feet long, so that's a pumpkin patch. Then we have sunflowers. So basically, from the parking to the back of the site where we have the vendor fairs is 500 to 600 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, how big of an area does that cover with the vendors? Like, how many vendors are there?
So, you know, we're new, we're trying to get more people, and that's where, you know, being here is part of that, because I don't want to say we only have 10 when this year it's like, oh my God, we have 50 vendors, but they get a 10 by 10 spot. And we have 2 big lawn spaces back there. So they're all along the Beaver Brook right there, all in the back of the property. That whole width of the property is close to 700 feet wide. And they are usually placed all in a line. And that way the people park up front. They have to walk by us in order to check in. They have to walk out in order, you know, so we're trying to funnel people so we see everyone coming and going. And then it's basically fair game. They all can disperse into the flower fields, and the vendors are in the very back.
Okay, great. And then, like, what kind of stuff are they selling usually?
So we had someone who did pressed flowers. We do Porch Fest every year. We've been doing it ever since the beginning. So we make friends. We say, hey, would you like to come to our place? So pressed flower, prints. We had a charcuterie girl. She made little charcuterie plates for people to sit on the lawn and eat. We have a high school girl who her parents are trying to get her to do a job, so she made custom-made cards. Really anyone who's open to coming. We haven't limited anything. The only thing that we limit is like petting zoos, you know. We don't do bounce houses because my insurance guy said don't even think about it. So yeah, I mean, anyone who would like to apply has been accepted. Anyone who you would see at Porch Fest would be in Old Weathersfield would be able to come to our property.
So, like, relative to the size of the farmer's market in Weathersfield, like, how big is
Like
that?
50 people, 50 tents.
Yeah, so it's similar in size.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, on our vendor fair last year, we estimated 4,000 people came through the door on a vendor fair, our first vendor fair.
And some of them couldn't find the place.
Yes, because there's no signs. Yeah, and that's the other, you know, the cell service over there is very bad, so I'm trying to deal with all that. And, you know, we're just basing those numbers off of, we finally bought car clickers. And, you know, so per car, estimation of per people coming in a car. Not every car of 4 people buy something. But we don't care. We just want people to come, and we ask that someone supports us out of that car, you know, out of that group. But yeah, the vendor fairs, our first vendor fair last year, I would estimate over 4,000 people came.
Great. And then, how do you handle, like, my only other 2 questions are about sort of like trash and waste, and then like seating for folks.
So we have Adirondack chairs, picnic tables. On our website, on our social media, we always promote people because we are very like the middleman range of, you know, there's no entrance fee. Come pack a picnic, bring your kids. We have lawn games. Bring your blanket, bring your folding chair. We will try and provide as much as we can. Having that amount of people last year opened our eyes to, like, we're never going to be able to afford that many chairs. So we really, you know, entertain the thought of just come and be comfortable, you know, no different than the town concert series. Bring your folding chair, and if you'd like to stay, that's fine. But we do provide as many Adirondack chairs as we can, and folding chairs. We have little kid picnic tables, little kid Adirondack chairs, you know, a large amount of lawn games, and we just want people to stay and hopefully buy something more.
Great, and then the trash piece, how do you handle?
Oh,
sort of
so the
like
trash, we have garbage cans all over the area that we feel like people are sitting in. And then we load it up, put it into a trailer at the end of the day and get rid of it at the transfer station.
Okay, so there's no like dumpsters or
No,
anything over
no
there?
dumpsters.
Okay.
No.
Actually, I was wondering how you get a garbage truck.
Yeah,
over there, so-
no, I get rid of all the garbage myself.
Great, thank you. So David, a couple things I was looking at, it looks like Waterford just passed an agritourism zoning regulation last year. And then South Windsor, it looks like maybe does it as an overlay zone, as an actual agritourism overlay zone. Not saying that we necessarily need to do that. It sounds like, it's not, I don't know how much, I don't know if, does the farmer's market have to, for example, come and get a special permit for what they do? But just definitely something for us to think about because this clearly is a very successful thing, and however we can make it easy for folks to do it and clear what the expectations are, I think would be really good.
Is that South Windsor? It was-
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of, if I may speak, the wedding that you brought up, people have asked. It's not on my radar right now. I think, we just had our third child, he's a month old, and I'd rather be at home at night. So that's why we really just want to be open basic hours, but I would love to, like David said, be able to revisit these things, as we find out if things work for the town. I don't want to box myself into a corner and say that I never want to do something. So, just being allowed the opportunity to revisit it would mean a lot to me.
I think what we're, as several have said, including Mr. Elder, we're trying to determine whether we could reasonably interpret what you've described as falling within the existing
Sure.
regulations, and he's suggested that, one of the potentially relevant sections would be subsection 9, which requires a special permit and includes fairgrounds and picnic areas. So I think the concept could be that some of what you're doing, like a temporary farm stand can be an as-of-right use. Farming is an as-of-right use. There can be some accessory uses involved, but it seems like part of what you're describing does go beyond those as-of-rights, which I think is why Mr. Elder is suggesting that a special permit process could be a way to go, and that also enables us to create a baseline with you.
Sure.
Defining exactly what it is you're going to be doing, hours of operation, days of week, all the different details, so that there's so that we know what it is, and if you wanted to, in the future, try to do something else, then we'd have to go back and look again and say, is this something else even permitted by the regulations, and sort of take it from there. But if that were the route that the commission ultimately decides to go, then you would need to come back to us with a special permit application, and again, have a very specifically drafted statement of sort of the core use.
Okay.
Dave, did you or anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I agree with you that some of the things you describe and some of the aspirational things, go beyond what's clearly permitted as of right and falls under the special permit. And I think it would be better for all of us to have that level of formality, just so that you can do what you're going to do, and that we don't need to kind of tap dance if somebody else comes in and wants to do something slightly more, slightly less, slightly different, as far as, well, you let him do this, I want to do that. At least we've set a precedent as to what the process is. And just for point of reference, the farmer's market has gotten a special permit in both of the locations that they've been. So, that I think is helpful to give you a context as to what kinds of things we would be looking for.
Sure. Yeah. I appreciate that.
And I think it also, the special permit mechanism also gives the commission the ability to, if problems were to arise and, you were just overwhelmed with people and that was causing impacts, it gives us the ability to revisit things with you and try to determine adjustments that might be needed to avoid all of those, impacts as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, like I'll say again, we didn't anticipate the growth from just cut flowers that has happened. So, other people have presented property in town, and before I take anything on, I'd like to narrow these things down and know that we can bring more to the town in a way that is approved. But the farming nature of it, I think, is a good draw for the town.
Yep. So
Done correctly.
are other commission members comfortable with the special permit approach to this?
Yeah, I think that is correct. I'm in agreement with that. The only thing I think you have to consider now, special permit will take time, not exorbitant amount of time, but it'll take more time than just doing what you're doing now. So I don't know what your schedule for planning is and when you have to get
We don't
seeds.
open till July.
Oh, so you got plenty of time.
That-
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do my best right now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I tend to agree with the analysis that you and my fellow commissioners have indicated, that a special use permit process would be the appropriate procedure to go in this. I do think that the town planner's outlining of the various kinds of uses that are covered in the permitted uses, number 2, 6, 9, and 10 that are cited and highlighted in the materials that have been presented to us. I think there's room for a reasonable interpretation of those provisions to include the totality of the activities that the applicant would have. He would, I think, need to have in his application a list of those activities that would be considered to be permitted uses that we could, attach conditions to in the application. I do feel that this proposal comes within the definition of the purpose of an agricultural zone, particularly the activities in quote, in keeping with Weathersfield's heritage and character of these areas, which I think dovetails quite nicely with what the applicant is intending to do.
I guess I would just suggest to you that you consult, with Mr. Elder as you move forward, if you want to move forward with a special permit application, because I think he could be of help to try to make sure that you address all the things that he thinks the commission is likely
Appreciate that.
to want to see. And any other comment, or I think we've pretty much covered. Rich, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing I want to say is that, I hope you don't take this as us punishing you for your success by, imposing another layer of regulation on it. We just kind of want to make sure that everything's squared away so that you're in good shape, we're in good shape, and, everybody understands what's going to be happening.
No, I've spoken with David a number of times, and like I said, I just want to make sure I'm doing things to the book, so to speak. I've mentioned the numbers that have come through the farm, and it's not just a little farm stand that might go overlooked. I am trying to make a living doing this, and I don't want any problems. So I'd much rather hear what I can do better at and what I need to do to get to that point.
Mr. Chairman, I have one final comment to make. And one of the issues that was raised early on in our review of this potential application is the issue of noise emanating from the operations that are proposed. I would just note that one of the permitted uses with a permit under the applicable regulations would be a target, trap, or skeet range, including accessory uses and structures. I tend to think that this potential use would be, would have the noise that's emanating from the site be much more user-friendly than the sound of gunfire.
Good point.
All that clipping.
I think as part of your next presentation, definitely a drawing of some kind that shows us exactly which activities would be in which areas, the
Okay.
parking, I think looking at it all on a sort of property as a whole basis
Appreciate that.
would be helpful.
Yeah.
I would just add to that drawing, try to make it to scale as much as possible. We've had people come in here that just kind of sketch something. They kind of know what they want to do, but it's kind of hard if it's not to scale.
Okay.
It would be nice to have, in your application, to have actually a detailed location map that you could basically not only have as part of your proposal, but would be able of being duplicated to hand out to your customers, your tourists that come in, so that they have a good, solid map reference for how to get to and get out of, your location.
For sure. Yeah, no, last year was, like I said, a learning curve over the last few years with signage. And I feel privileged to be able to keep adding more acreage, but, with that privilege comes more problems. So, very good input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
All right, next, we have no other business, I guess just the minutes of February 18th, if someone would like to make a motion.
I'll move to accept the minutes of February 18, 2026.
I'll second the minute.
Second by Tony. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, minutes approved. Next, public comment on non-agenda items. I don't see any public here other than the gentleman who just had the pre-application. Unless you care to speak on something other than your own situation, looks like no. Correspondence, Dave?
Yeah, this is a memo. This memo gets circulated to a number of commissions in town. This has been prepared. This is going to, I believe I'm actually not involved with the CIAC because I don't generally have capital projects, so some of you all might understand its significance more than I do. But this is the project list, the ranking of all of the capital projects that are included in that were submitted to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee and that have been ranked according to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee. I did confirm, and I believe this is the second year that we've seen this, that seeing this list is just for, your information purposes only. If anything does require an 8-24 or site plan, you will see it again. So there's no action necessary. This is more of a just communication to know, what the major capital projects are that are prioritized to move forward in this next budget year.
Okay.
If there are any questions, you can ask them and we'll make a note and I'll try to get answers, but I probably will not be able to answer them.
Okay. And item 9, applications for future meetings.
We have received one application. It's for a potential retail store of less than 10,000 square feet. We have not received a fee yet, but it's more of a logistical issue or a challenge that we haven't received a fee, but it is for reusing the, and I don't mind talking about it because I do expect it'll be complete and paid for by the next meeting, but it's to reuse the dentist office or the area inside 239 Silas Deane Highway for a used and new firearm store. So I did look in the regulations, I sort of expected to see something that would regulate firearm sales differently than other types of retail, but I didn't find anything. We do, obviously, with alcohol and cannabis, in certain other types of stores, we do have separating distances, but I saw nothing specific to firearms. And so, as far as I'm considered and aware, we would treat this as another retail store under 10,000 square feet. There are certain licenses that are required to sell and resell firearms. This applicant does currently have a similar store, much smaller in Vernon, I believe, and they are outgrowing that. And so they found this existing space inside what used to be the dentist office that this would, interior-wise, Weathersfield would treat this as a tenant refit. Sorry, that's not the term at Weathersfield. Something like that. The only reason that it would actually come to the commission, and is coming to the commission, because it's the change of use of the area.
It's on the south side of Cumberland
It's
Avenue.
just north of the Silas Dean Pond shop, right across the street from the police station. So not a bad area for location for the potential sales. But if any of the commissioners know differently, please, feel free to let me know. But I didn't see any reason that this would be treated any differently than a retail store. So that is what's on the look ahead. They are repurposing a site in an interior area, so I have asked for some more information in terms of a floor area, layout, security, how the place is going to operate. So I do expect all that, and that is still, I don't have that yet.
At this point, is that the only application you're expecting
That
for the
is.
next meeting?
It is. Yeah, correct.
Okay, so if that doesn't get finalized, then,
There may be no meeting.
okay.
That's right.
Dave?
I should talk about this in other business. I'm the liaison for Planning and Zoning EDIC, which is really pretty active group. You see you there once in a while. There's like 20 people there, and they go an hour and a half. But I give them a little summary of what we do, and we talked about the Neil Bakery thing in the town center zoning. And afterwards, actually during the meeting, everybody discussed that they thought it was a waste of time. Town center zoning. Obviously, someone put a lot of time into this, but I wonder if we should look at this and readdress it. Because these are the guys that seem to be really honest. Like I said, you've done the meetings, they're really honest.
Microphone.
And so I don't know if that's something we could do, because most people thought the idea of having a drive-through with food wasn't an issue, but of course it's not in our zoning plan. But I just wonder if we should sit back and readdress it. And I guess everybody there, people remember who did this and why they did it. It was supposed to be more of a walking area and all that type of stuff, but they said it wasn't ever going to happen. So
Although I do think the town is actively involved now in some grant money to get pedestrian and traffic safety
again, to
improvements
do
and so
what
forth.
though? Again,
Yeah.
I sat in a meeting with like 20 people. This is what they live for this stuff, and they all sat there and said, "Dave, this is ridiculous. We should get rid of the
We
whole
also
thing."
heard some comments, the
Yeah.
pre-app, the
I'm with
opposite
you.
of that.
I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah,
Should we-
but I think the bottom line is
Yeah.
that particular pre-app that we heard, my understanding is the applicant has decided not to proceed with it, so I don't think. we'll
Well,
be
he
seeing
might have
that.
said he didn't want to proceed because we basically, I wouldn't say we shut him down, but
Well,
he's got a lot of work to go ahead of
I
him.
think part of it was that it was going to be a very costly and, complicated application.
okay.
Even if drive-throughs were allowed, it would have been a
Yeah.
costly and application process. But that's certainly something we can think about, but
So Dave, I'm glad you brought that up because I was at a meeting when we were doing the plan of development, one of the night meetings with people. Same thing came up in that meeting. I recall that same discussion with a number of folks that were there. Why do we have this zone and should we revisit it? And I think in the plan of development, that statement or that sentiment was actually put in there. It says that this commission ought to revisit that. So I think we ought to. I think we ought to just take a look at this and say, does it still make sense? What was it, 30 years ago, 40 years ago when they,
That's why I brought it up. Again, these 20 people really seem to be on top of it, and they all said it's a waste of time.
Right,
so.
but for all intents and purposes, I think it is virtually identical to every other commercial zone, with the one exception drive-throughs. So I think the question really becomes, do we think it's important to have drive-throughs on that
Well, we
stretch
have,
of the
there's like
Silentine Highway?
7 drive-throughs for money.
That's all it
but there's no
amounts to.
drive-throughs for food.
Right, but I
And
think-
again, I don't know.
But I think it's all zoned for A to Z businesses in the
Anyways.
town center.
I brought it up because they brought it up, and maybe it's something that we could take a look at, because, you hate to have people walk away for something that nobody really cares about, you know what I mean? So,
Well, the
unless someone's very emotional about it, I don't know, someone thought it through at one time, so.
2036 plan of development is just around the corner. so.
Well, whatever, I'm just saying, we probably lost maybe a good person because of that, maybe not, I don't know, but whatever.
David, did the applicant that did the pre-application come to talk to you after a meeting?
He did, yeah. Yeah, and,
Did you
So-
explain to him where we were with that?
yeah, I think it's a lot easier to have those conversations when there's not an application before the commission or before the town. I can speak freely, and I think this commission knows, and if you're experienced, you understand that, it's not, well, it is somewhat nuanced, right? And so a pre-application, you get some feedback, and then there's the next step. In this case, it was going to be a 3-step process: a pre-application, a zoning regulation text change, and then, if approved, a special permit. And so, and they get progressively more difficult each time. And so I just explained to the applicant to be prepared for what any commission would ask for in this sort of a situation, which would be, a well-crafted zoning regulation, proposed zoning regulation, probably ideally drafted by someone with familiarity with land use planning, like an attorney or someone that you're going to pay money for. And then you're going to have to do some sort of a traffic analysis. And I explained, and this is where it can be difficult. Anecdotally, we can all sit around and say, oh, the traffic works pretty well there. Why do I need a traffic study? And I explained the reason that you would need a traffic study is because we're a group of people that represent the community, and we all need to say in good faith that we made a decision based on information that was presented. So we want to make sure, I want to make sure that someone's not going to create a condition that is worse or more dangerous than what currently exists. So even if anecdotally someone thinks the traffic is great, we would want to have a professional traffic study that tells us that, so we can make a reasonable decision saying this is a good idea at this location. And then I also explained that internally, the site itself, while it does seem like there's ample parking, and this was my opinion, and I said I would want to understand how this works. Typically, let's take a Burger King or a McDonald's. You have a single site, a single building with parking around the perimeter and a single loop. In this case, you have a decentralized facility. You have a school, an educational institution attracting multiple people. You have a professional office. You have a third professional office, and now you're going to have a restaurant, and you're going to have cars circulating. So I would want to know internally how that site is going to operate, and you're going to try to reduce those conflicts of people and cars. Again, a reasonable request, but it's going to cost money to have someone do that. And so I just explained that at every step of the way, there is no guarantee until you get to the end, and you have to outlay that investment. And so I had the ability to just present all that and say, it's up to you if you want to proceed, but there's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to give you, and the most assurance you're going to get was a non-binding pre-application. And I explained that. And then I also, as we saw, that particular applicant and property owner felt very passionate that they've done a lot of investing in the town, and they do great work, and I think we all appreciate that. But the concern, I explained this, is that once you approve something like that, you're not just approving this application, you're now opening the door to any other similar application that could be a drive-through, it could be anything. And so, in no way was the decision, whatever it may be, a reflection on this particular, person or applicant, but it's opening the door to something that could be anyone. So I had that conversation, and I didn't hear from them for about 2 weeks, and then they came back and said they decided to to consider other things. And in the meantime, I did hear that, a lot of those similar restaurants, I didn't know this, but now about 65% of all of that type of a business model is done by drive-throughs. So it is I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. What you brought up is, should and not just change the zone that drive-throughs are allowed. It seems to me, through this process, what I learned is that it really is specific to the site. It's the operations of the site that make a drive-through good or bad in the location of the site. So in my mind, it's not necessarily the zone. If you can have a good separating distance from a residential property, and you can have enough internal circulation, and you can have enough queuing, those all, in my mind, seem to be the operational characteristics of where you would or wouldn't want to have a drive-through, not the zone, right? So for all those reasons, that's long-winded, but I think it is a worthwhile to say, is it more about the parcel and less about the zone where you would want to have a drive-through?
Well, the first time you approached us with this concept, you told us exactly that you thought that the town ought to consider making the change to allow for a special permit that's site-specific for that area. That was your first thought.
That's great, I'm consistent with myself.
That was the first thing you put in front of us, and we said...
Best news I've heard all
And
day.
we said, well, we said at that time, we're not sure why do you want to do this? We had no idea what the interest was. Then this guy came back, explained what he wanted to do. So maybe we ought to go back and consider what you said to us the first time. I would at least consider it.
I think it's also,
When did we start allowing drive-throughs anyways? What was it, 80s? Because this town never allowed drive-throughs. When I was a kid, you could have a drive-through.
I don't know.
First one that came in was Burger King. And everybody wondered how they got in there.
I think most of the drive-throughs were variances until the 80s.
Yeah, okay, and like, Peter, you're around like I was, they had the A&W. That's how they got rid of it. There's no drive-throughs. They had to get rid of them. No drive-throughs. Then all of a sudden, Burger King popped up.
So, I mean, I'll say it again. I'd be open to listening to
Should be
this,
some
to
discussion.
have a discussion. Mr. Chairman, what do you think?
everybody would have to weigh in on it. I think I've previously commented, I think, I'm still looking at it as the tentative, the essence of changing it would really be because we want to give people the chance to have drive-throughs in the town center zone.
You know, actually, Joe, the real thing is, forget about the drive-through and all that stuff. Again, what came out of the little group discussion, it was loose. But these people are the people who kind of really into this stuff. And they basically, they understand what it was about. It was about pedestrian walking and all this stuff. But realistically, it's never going to happen there.
Right, I mean,
It's just not what that is.
part of it, I
you
think,
know,
was
it's
also-
a highway. You could
Right.
you could change the name of the street to Boulevard, do whatever you want to do, but still, nobody's walking there. And,
To
you
me,
know.
part of the equation, though, is, and we had discussion about this, do we have ample number of existing drive-throughs coupled with properties that by special permit, 10 more people can come in already and ask for drive-throughs? So to me, that's the issue, and I guess my view is I think town center isn't losing out on anything other than a drive-through, potentially. Otherwise, it can do what everybody else, so I don't see a driving need to tamper with it at this stage, just based on where we are right now. I mean, maybe a longer term could be, should there even be other uses that
Well, let me
should
ask
be
you,
allowed?
you've been around longer. So
Yeah.
why do we let banks have money drive-throughs then, and not food drive-through? What difference? I mean, you
I
still
don't
got
think
a
it
row
has
of
to do with
people.
distinguishing the type of drive-through. I think it
Okay.
was just that town center was created to not allow any drive.
Yeah, but I understand there's 7 on that in town center. There's 7
No, not in
drive-throughs.
the, I don't think in the,
There's
if there
two.
are, if there
Two?
are,
I
they were
thought somebody told me
pre-existing
seven. Two
before the
banks.
reg.
Adjacent to it, not in the town center.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
two banks
Not
across
in-
the street.
Not in the town center, huh?
Yeah.
I'll look.
It might
Look,
be one that was grandfathered.
the chairman mentioned, there is the Silestein study going on, and just from a transportation perspective, I haven't seen an applicant in a long time pay for a traffic study where the traffic engineer said it didn't work, right? So we're going to end up, most likely,
That's
with
the
the...
ones you don't pay for.
Right. We never see those.
Yeah.
And so my concern, and this is
We need to
regardless
one.
as to where any drive-through would be permitted along the Silestein, is that, I think access management, and I hope that comes out of the study, one of the operational deficiencies on the Silestein and any corridor like the Silestein is where you have all these curb cuts where people are making lefts in, you're opposing 2 lanes of traffic. It's dangerous, but it also it really does reduce the level of service. And that would be my concern of any drive-through. And that's why, and I did tell the applicant, I think traffic operations are significant because that intersection of Wells Road, while there are 4 curb cuts from that property, and that's assuming they have the right to redirect traffic through the other property, which is still to be determined, that existing intersection operates very poorly, and it is a high crash spot. So adding more vehicle movements, and while it is only a few hours a day, those added vehicle movements are in the AM peak period time where it's the worst. That's not, that would be a hard from an operational characteristics, that's not great. That's not what you would want to achieve. From an economic perspective, it'd be great. It would be great, right? We'd want people to come and come to Weathersfield for donuts. But I think there's a legitimate reason why you would. That's why I'm just saying, it's back to the location, right? That might not be the best location for more vehicle trips to be generated, making lefts in, lefts out. It's not an easy site. I know it seems easy for the group, I don't think I've ever heard of a business opportunity that an Economic Development Commission has ever said it's not a good idea, and I agree with that, but there are certain that are better than others.
I would just add that I talked to my barber's in that parking lot, and I was talking to him about just the traffic flows on that half next to Bebo's there. And I mean, even the area in front of that property is supposed to be one way, and people go the wrong way all the time on that with the traffic that they have now. And then he was saying that, I mean, like there's a very high amount of accidents that they experience just right there in front of the front of their business. And like just one of the ones that was one where you think shouldn't be an issue, but turning left onto Wells out of that parking lot, that was, traffic is not moving quickly, visibility is good, and somehow it still happens. And so I think if you were to increase traffic, to that degree in that parking lot at all, it would have been challenging. And so, that would have been an expense for the applicant. And so I'm really grateful that they had the chance to come in and have that conversation, and I think get that perspective. But I do agree that at the very least, we should get some kind of an update on this Silestein study, and if there is or isn't a grant about how that's going to go, if we're going to have any kind of a conversation about the town center zone and changing it to see like what is the status, how long is any of that going to take, are we losing out on opportunities for the town, because we're just waiting and waiting and waiting.
Well, I'm managing that study, so I mean, we'll have some alternatives in the spring. So they finished the existing conditions. They actually had to sync those existing conditions with the proposed alternatives in the new signalization plan, which is supposed to approve the conditions. So that was kind of what they were waiting for, is they're running modeling simulations, but they had to include the new signalization and timing that's tied into the red light cameras. So it was sort of a bit of a waiting game, but
Great.
I do think, just to set some expectations, there's not enough money in the world to reconstruct all of the Silestein. I think that we're going to end up with a couple of key intersections and some improvements. But I think access management, if nothing more, this commission should also really start looking very heavily at when we do have an opportunity to reduce curb cuts onto the Silestein and have rear access among buildings. We should really start looking at that.
I think we had put some things in the regulations a long time ago, and then maybe during the last rewrite to encourage.
Consolidation.
Yeah.
Probably easier said than done. I don't know how you encourage.
Yeah, nobody wants to do it. Yeah.
All right. If nothing further, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Rich?
I have one more thing. I'm sorry.
Too late.
I apologize.
Too late.
I didn't hear the vote. There was
I'll
no
take
vote.
the
We're still
second.
deliberating. I will be very quickly. The town has been using a system for, you all know, probably from town council, called Granicus. Granicus is an agenda management system that also helps with the minutes. I've been asked to consider it. Apparently, when it was purchased several years ago, it was first purchased for the town council to use it. It allows for, it's all online, right? It's all digital. There are paper copies, but it is very effective at managing agendas where there is an application and many attachments, right? And so similar to how we we post an agenda and all the attachments on a Thursday or Friday, and then we get updated materials. This would allow us to, in real time, say, okay, we have an addition. It does make it very organized. There's also some benefits. It will sync up with the recording and where the minutes are. So you could look at the recording, or you could look at the minutes, and you could click on it, and it will go right to the point in either the minutes on, the video or the minutes. Anyway, we've been asked to sort of pilot it for one of our upcoming meetings and see if we like it. The benefit is that it is more organized. The downside is for anyone who relies on the paper copies, that is the other benefit that I see, is that I would not be printing, and we wouldn't be printing, 50-page packets. So the town would also consider buying computers for everyone if they wanted them, or you could use your own. I bring this up because we would still have paper copies available for the meeting. We should always have paper copies available for any member of the public, as well as any commissioner who would like to have paper copies. I just want to sort of give a heads up that we are being asked to look at it and consider it, and sort of get a level of comfort with moving towards an electronic, you could take them home, they could be here waiting for you, but part of it would be the town would give you some electronic device to look at.
Should be a loaner, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to give us computers.
Well,
Desktops.
they kind of left it open. You could take it home if you want. I don't know, but,
I got 3 at home, I don't need another,
well,
but
we'd have to decide, iPads, laptops, Chromebooks, I don't know. But, and as part of that, just to be clear, I would also, I think it's always good to have for example, if we have a 200-page traffic report, I don't know if we all need a printed copy of that traffic report. Maybe I have 1 or 2 printed copies available at the meeting and a couple of plan sets, and then the rest, you sort of trust my judgment that I'm going to have the most pertinent materials needed, and then I'll have, sets for everyone.
Wait,
okay, second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, absent? Okay.
That didn't work.